up, everybody? This is Sankara. I'm back with a video, this time in Kiswahili. So let's go ahead and get started with the lesson. So, madhumuni, objectives. We have 3 objectives for this lesson. The first, we will be reviewing the basic greetings or maamkio. Secondly, we'll be practicing with the subject pronouns. And lastly, we'll be talking about the verb conjugations, get y'all folks speaking up to speed. So let's go. All right, so you guys can listen and repeat. The first that we have, habari gani. Habari gani. And the response can be nzuri, mzima, na wewe. So, nzuri na wewe or mzima na wewe. Next, you can also say salama, habari yako, habari zako, or you can just simply say habari as we said in the previous lesson. Now, this phrase habari za can be used with pretty much any expression to ask about how something is going or doing. So, for example, we have habari za asubuhi, which would translate as how are things this morning, or how are you this morning. We have habari za mchana, habari za mchana. So again, rudia tafadhali, repeat please. Habari za mchana, habari za nyumbani, how are things at home. You could even say habari za shule. Shule means school. How are things at school? Habari za masomo. How are your studies going? So habari za can be used to ask about virtually anything. Hujambo, how's it going? And the response would be si jambo, which means pretty much I'm good. Hakuna matata, hamna tabu. There's no problem. So moving on. So now we have these subject pronouns. So in Kiingereza, or in English, we have subject pronouns as we do in Kiswahili. So for English, we have I, you, he, she, and it, we, you plural, or y'all, where I'm from, the South, and they. And then in Kiswahili, we have the corresponding pronouns. We have mimi, we have wewe, which corresponds with you. We have yeye, which can mean he or she. The context will clarify which one is being referred to. We have sisi, which is we. We have nyinyi, which is you, plural, or y'all, you all. And then we have wow, which is they. So as you guys can see the notes, there is no one word that corresponds with the English word it. We'll be getting to that in a later lesson, but just know that there is no Swahili equivalent to the word it. Instead, it is expressed in several different ways with different words according to the noun class system. And we'll be talking about the noun class system in a later lesson as well. Secondly, as I've already said, the pronoun yeye is used for both he and she, and it'll be clarified according to the context. So, conjugating verbs. Before they are conjugated, all Swahili verbs are start in the ku form. So, conjugating Swahili verbs, as you guys will learn very shortly, is pretty simple. There's not a bunch of tricks as there are in European languages such as French and Spanish. It's pretty straightforward. And in order to conjugate a Swahili verb, we're going to need 3 things. The first being the subject, the second being the tense marker, and the third being the verb stem. So, vitenzi is verbs. So, in order to kunyambua vitenzi, in order to conjugate these verbs, again, we're going to need the first component, which is knowing the subject. So for each subject, there's a corresponding beginning or prefix. The chart above contains all the prefixes that you will need to conjugate almost any verb. And I put that almost there intentionally because there are a few exceptions for which this model is not going to work. So another note, you can actually disregard this last note because it comes in a much later lesson, but we're just highlighting again that there is no Swahili equivalent to the word it. So now we move on to step 2, finding the tense marker. The tense marker indicates the verb tense, as you might have guessed, and is placed right after the tense prefix. It can also be called an infix. So the marker, and that's actually a typo, verb maker, but the marker or infix for the present tense is na. So first we have to know who we're talking about. So for this example, the first one we have Mimi is the subject. So as I said, there's a corresponding prefix for each subject. So for Mimi, it's ni, wewe, it's u, yeye, it's a, sisi, it's tu, nini is and wow will be wa. So coming down the home stretch, final step, adding the stem. So as I said, every verb begins with ku, but in order to conjugate the verb, you're going to have to take the verb out of its ku form and use the stem. So for example, we have the verb kusema, which means to speak. There are also other verbs that mean the same thing, to speak. For example, we have kuzungumza, which we'll be conjugating in a few slides from now. And we also have kuongea. They all mean the same thing. Kusema, kuzungumza, kuongea. They all mean to speak. So in this example, sema is the stem. So all we're going to do to find the stem is to get rid of this ku, and that's the stem. So for example, for kutoka, take away the ku, and the stem is right there, kutoka. Like I said, it sounds kind of complicated at first, but it's very simple. Alright, so mazoezi, conjugate the verb kuongea. So now we're going to start conjugating. So we have Mimi again, wewe, yeye, sisi, nyinyi, and wow. So let's go ahead and conjugate this verb kuongea. So first of all, for Mimi, we're going to find the prefix, which is ni, the tense marker, which is na for the present tense, and the stem in that order. So the stem for kuongea is the verb minus ku, or ongea. So in order to say, for example, I speak Swahili, I would say mimi ni na ongea Kiswahili, which is the Swahili word for Swahili. Wewe una ongea Kiswahili. Yeye anaongea Kiswahili. Sisi tunaongea Kiswahili. Nyinyi mnaongea Kiswahili. And wao wanaongea Kiswahili. So that's it. Now you're ready to conjugate virtually any verb in Kiswahili. Alright, so that's going to conclude our lesson. Very short, straight to the point. Thank you for listening. Be sure to support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. And again, this is the next installment, the second installment of a language learning series that will be going on for several languages. So if you're interested in learning Swahili or other languages such as Haitian Creole or Creole, please subscribe. Thanks for listening. Asante kwa kuangalia, and we will see you in the next lesson.